If you've watched even a few minutes of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearings this week, you've likely noticed it. And by it, I mean structural racism and sexism. That's the thing that's woven into our society, that even a black woman being considered for a seat on the highest bench in the country is still experiencing it. Today, on the fourth and final day of Judge Jackson's confirmation hearings, we heard from outside witnesses. The one that stood out the most in the theme of being a black woman and facing far more impossible standards than those who have come before her is Congresswoman Joyce Beatty's opening statement.
Judge Jackson would be only the sixth woman and the first black woman to serve on our nation's highest court. If confirmed, she would shatter a glass ceiling that many Americans, including those who fought and died for voting rights, a more perfect union, and a just America, believe that they would never live to see it broken.
And we can't forget Senator Cory Booker's moving comments on Wednesday that even brought Judge Jackson to tears.
You got here how every black woman in America who's gotten anywhere has done by being like Ginger Rogers said, I did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards in heels. And so I'm just sitting here saying, nobody's stealing my joy. Nobody's going to make me angry. You're a person that is so much more than your race and gender. You're a Christian, you're a mom, you're an intellect, you love books. But for me, I'm sorry, it's hard for me not to look at you and not see my mom. You have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American. That
right there was Senator Booker making space for Judge Jackson to be human. And I'll tell you right now, every black woman appreciated that because we all see ourselves in these hearings. And joining me now to break this all down, Melissa Murray. She's a law professor at NYU, and she's also an MSNBC contributor. Also with us, Judith Brown-Dianis. She's the executive director of the Advancement Project. I'm so grateful to you both for being here for this conversation specifically. Judith, I'll start with you. Let's just start with the takeaways that you have for these confirmation hearings. For some context, here's a tweet that I saw and I immediately saved and sent to like all of my black girlfriends. Dear white people, it's totally fine to admire our patience, self-control, and poise. But it's important to understand these things aren't just character traits. They are tools for survival. To be anything but things above in a white America is to risk our dreams in America, is to risk our dreams and flourishing. And so what I think is important about this idea is that, you know, she has to have all the experience. She has to have all of the resume items. She has to show up and be completely poised no matter what is thrown at her. That's just like a requirement. But that's actually a universal thing that a lot of black women could relate to as they watch these hearings this week.
That's right, Zerlina. She was all of us this week. For black women, she stood there for us or sat there for us because we could all identify with what she was going through. The indignities that were being thrust upon her, the waving of the finger at her, the cutting her off, the yelling at her are things that black women have endured. And when she talked about what her message would be to others, to young people coming behind her, and the word persevere, black women know that all too well. We are told that we have to persevere, and we do. We get through it all. We are strong enough, but there is harm that comes with that perseverance. And so I think that is important to recognize because we do go through it. And, you know, I didn't think I'd be so emotional watching this because I knew that the Republicans were going to throw lots of things at her and I knew that they would be rude. But I think it was triggering because it opened up old wounds of my own experiences.
No, as you're talking, I'm actually getting a little emotional. And the word that I used to describe yesterday, Melissa, was triggering. It was triggering to see an experienced, accomplished woman. I mean, really at the height of her career, getting, this job interview for one of the most prestigious and sought after positions in the country. And yet she still has to deal with, as Judith said, those indignities. Can you talk about how that feels and some of the consequences in the long term? I mean, the reason why I was getting emotional when Judith was talking is because physically on our bodies, there are consequences. We have high rates of high blood pressure, stroke, and there are real consequences. It's not just theoretical here.
These are real experiences. She is a real person. And I think some of that was lost yesterday. Again, I had no illusions about the kind of treatment that she would face, but even I was stunned by the vitriol that was leveled at her, and for no real purpose. This is a job interview. It is one where the senators, even those who are in the opposition party, are entitled to question her even rigorously about her judicial philosophy, about her record. But yesterday we saw something that went beyond the pale, beyond even disrespect. And she was called a pedophile, someone who was soft on pedophiles. I think that was meant to be a dog whistle to the GOP's QAnon underbelly. She was called soft on crime, a kind of label that has particular resonance for those in the Black community, and a charge, I think, that could only be leveled at someone who is an African-American woman. Given her record, there really was no evidence that she is actually soft on crime. And we didn't really learn much that was useful to the confirmation process about her record, that they probed her about her sentencing record. But most judges on the Supreme Court will never have an opportunity to actually sentence someone to prison. They will be reviewing sentences, but they're not going to actually be sentencing individuals. This was pure political theater done at her expense. And what was most shocking to me is that, with the exception of Cory Booker, we saw very few Democratic senators actually bring the kind of outrage and disbelief to their own questioning. This was abhorrent, what happened, and she deserved better, and she deserved better from them.
So I think that's like the perfect segue to my next question, Judith, because I've been thinking a lot about how these hearings were a microcosm and maybe a teaching moment, if you will, for everybody, right? You saw Cory Booker be the person to create the space and almost try to create some bubble of protection for her, deservedly so, because these are, abusive attacks, as Melissa said, abhorrent. But that's so rare in real life for Black women. We don't get the bubble of protection. We don't get, the knight in shining armor on the horse. Like, that's not our lived experience. Can you talk about the teachable moment in watching these hearings and how people can think through, well, maybe we should speak up more on behalf of Black women in our regular lives. Maybe we should make sure that the Black woman in our workspace is being heard in the meeting, for example. So can you talk about the ways we can use what we saw at these hearings and apply it to our everyday interactions?
Sure, this wasn't just a civics lesson, but it was a life lesson. People should actually be thinking about, what did I see and how can I be different? Because if you don't speak up, you are complicit in that activity. You are complicit in racist behaviors. And so whether it is in the workplace or in the classroom, because I do remember in law school having these moments and these indignities all the time. Everybody who's been through law school knows a Ted Cruz, and a Ted Cruz is in the classroom, right? And so it really is incumbent upon us to be able to speak up and to protect each other and to say, we are not going to sit around and have this behavior. And so for white folks who are watching, go back and watch it. It's clear the way that she was being treated, and know that the next time you see that in a conference room or on a Zoom call, that you should stand up and say, we can't, this is unacceptable behavior.
It's so true about the Ted Cruz in law school. I'm thinking back, we used to have a sister circle in law school. So if a black woman's voice wasn't heard, we'd be like, you know, what she said was a really great point. I think we should go back to it. We tried to at least make sure each other were being seen because of those Ted Cruz's. That is a real thing. Melissa, we learned today that Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announced he'll vote against Judge Jackson's nomination. Any surprise there? Do you think that she'll be able, even given the partisan divides, to get any Republican votes?
Who cares? It doesn't matter. She has the Democratic votes, and even if she's unable to peel off a single Republican, she will be the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. That's what's actually so galling about all of this. Her nomination and her appointment are foregone conclusions at this point. She's going to be a justice of the Supreme Court. This entire political theater was for no other purpose than signaling and dog whistling to the Republican base and debasing a Black woman in a public setting before the entire country. So no, I'm not surprised that Leader McConnell has made the statement. I don't know if she will get support from any Republican. She should. But I do think that there is perhaps something striking about the prospect of a 50-50 Senate with everyone voting along party lines, and then Kamala Harris, the first Black woman to serve as vice president, being the deciding vote. And I will note, this confirmation hearing was quite unusual because there were no other Black women in positions to ask questions, because there are no Black women in the Senate. And in fact, the only African-American in the room was Cory Booker, and he was the one who stood in that space with her. So it's fine if he doesn't support her. I actually would like to see Kamala Harris make this historic vote and put the first Black woman on the court.
It's a really important point there. I think that's going to be a powerful moment. Melissa Murray and Judith Brown Dianis, I feel better now that I've had this conversation with both of you. So I hope folks at home that were feeling triggered or frustrated feel better too. Thank you both for this conversation. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.